Good afternoon, learners. Welcome to today's IT lesson. So today we're going to continue with yesterday's yesterday's work. So yeah, just to recap what we spoke about yesterday. So remember the question yesterday was for us to create a project called Horizontal to do the following. It was to allow the user to input 8 numbers using a dialog box and to code your output to match the layout of the sample output. Sorry, learners, if there's any questions that you have, I'm sure by now you're used to the group chat. So please let's just use that. But yeah, let's continue. So yesterday we spoke about the vertical layout, you remember? And we spoke about how simple that was. Now I agree that towards the latter part of the lesson, it got a bit rushed. Okay, and I apologize about the fact that the lesson did get cut off. So we're going to continue. And remember, before the lesson concluded, the purpose or one of the things that we had to do was to involve some kind of string handling so that we were able to join these numbers that are in the array. So we had to create this variable as we did yesterday. We called it sJoin, but you could call it whatever you wanted to. And you obviously wanted to arrange these numbers or join them so that it can be displayed on one line. That is what we mean by horizontal. Okay, so this is the code over there. And as I said yesterday, we did the code in Delphi, so I'm not really going to go back to it. But just to reiterate or note important points, so this is what I was telling you about. Because of the string handling involved, we created this variable called, I called it S horizontal join, but if I'm not mistaken, yesterday it was called S join. It's the same thing. So I just had to I just had to retype this program out this morning to include it in the slide. So as it says, we have created a variable to concatenate our values. Please can we get used to that term concatenate? Because if I'm not mistaken, it got asked in one of the grade 12 papers a year or 2 years ago, and they had it in the multiple choice, and learners didn't know what concatenate meant. So again, concatenate is to obviously join, doing so with the string handling. So this was another important thing that we noted yesterday was the headings. Okay, I'm just going to go back to the slide. And you notice that we had to say, thank you for inputting your numbers in horizontal order. So that's what our code should have had first. So notice that headings are displayed at the beginning and not in the loop. Okay, code is displayed at the beginning and not in the loop. Okay, so obviously by using a new red display, and learners, if you didn't know by now, but obviously each time we use a red output.lines.add, what we are telling Delphi is to please start on a new line for us. So if you go back again to the sample output, you would notice that thank you for inputting numbers is on one line. So in that rich edit, I obviously hit it over there. Now, some learners might say, but we could have used hash 13. Yes, you're welcome to do that. That would still it will still work fine. I just find it a lot more manageable if I used separate rich edits. Okay, so I went ahead and I did red line or red display dot lines dot add, and you can see I did that for line 1. And then for displaying the second line, by saying red display dot lines dot add, I'm able to display your numbers in horizontal order in the second line. Okay, so I hope everyone is fine with that part over there. Now, obviously, we wanted to display the numbers from the array. So we needed to use the for loop. So we said for I is equal to 1 to 8, y 8, just to reiterate from yesterday, the 8 was there for us to be able to store the values at 8 different to store 8 different store values at 8 different positions. Okay, so learners, please ignore the chat over there and please listen to the class. I mean, you want to make sure that you are taking something valuable from this lessons. So yeah, so please, as the host indicated, please could you listen to the lesson. Okay, so S horizontal join is equal to S horizontal join. That is the string and character handling that I'm talking about for us to be able to join these numbers on one line. So again, from yesterday, for those who are joining us for the first time, An array is different from a variable, so it has to be shown differently, and we show it differently with these square brackets. The #9 is for a space, and as one of the learners indicated yesterday, can we just use a space? Well, that's fine also. Take note of the fact that I didn't display horizontal join within the for loop, because if I did it within the for loop, again from yesterday, it will display it 8 times. So by coming out of the loop and displaying it, I'm able to achieve this output that we see in the sample column. Okay, so I hope that was quite easy for you guys to understand. And by looking at by the chat, I don't see any questions. So I'm assuming that you guys are fine with that. Okay, so again, we went on, we spoke about, oh yes, yes, I can see that mistake. Thank you, Brown One. Leonard, so I see that mistake. Let's go to the code, okay? I see the mistake. So Brown One said, if you're obviously joining these numbers, wasn't it supposed to be into string over there? So I'm just gonna go back. Let me just share the Delphi screen with you guys, and we're gonna try to do that. Okay. So this is what Brown One is saying. I hope you guys can see the screen in front of you. This is what I did not do. Okay, I wouldn't say it was purpose. It was purpose. I did not. I was just trying to put this together. So yes. So this is what is important. It has to be in string format. Okay, you had to convert it from a number to a string because the entire line had to be string. S horizontal join is a string. S horizontal join is a string over there again. And obviously, the number had to be into a string format for us to be able to join those numbers together. So thank you, Brandon. I appreciate that. And obviously take note of the fact that the display came outside the uh, display. Okay. So Kristen asks, how come we didn't initialize S horizontal join? Kristen, it wasn't necessary for you to allocate a space to it. I will show it to you. You're welcome to allocate a space to it. It is not compulsory, neither is it wrong if you did it. I just prefer to do it without it. And let's go ahead and run this program. Okay, let's hope it works. So I'm going to run it. I'm going to share that screen with you guys so we can see it together. Okay, so I'm going to run it. Okay, I'm just going to let you guys to view it with me. Remember, we were inputting numbers for the array. So Ben asked, why is the for loop from 1 to 8? It is from 1 to 8 because obviously we want to allocate 8 different positions for the array, because remember, we have 8 different numbers. That is why the loop is from 1 to 8. Okay, thank you, Caleb. So 12, I'm just going to put any numbers over here, random numbers. Okay, and so if we display horizontally, okay, I look at that. Okay, let's not worry about this part with the red display. I'm interested in this part here. By the way, learners, do you know how to get rid of that red display? If you go to the object inspector and you click on lines, it should give you the option to remove it. Okay, so just remember that. So thank you for inputting numbers, your numbers in horizontal order, and it gave it to us in this horizontal format. Okay, so yes, you could have also done rich edit.clear. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's continue with, so that was yesterday's work, by the way. Okay, so I'm going to just stop that. Okay, and let's go back to the PowerPoint. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so I'm hoping that everyone was fine with that question. As you can see, learners, that it is about it is getting really simple now. We really, from the first lesson last week when we started talking about arrays to now, I'm hoping that we're looking very confident with what the section is about. Okay, so again, nothing complicated. I'm hoping that I'm getting last week when we started this, there was a lot of learners saying, is it going to get this difficult? But as you can see, we're looking at the different examples, and I am taking it slow because it is a new section, and I want to make sure that I'm not leaving, everyone is following. So again, I try to answer all your questions, so please just keep chatting through that window over there. And yeah, so let's continue. So what did we learn from the above example? Take note, learners, of the string handling that we incorporated into our code so that we were able to join the numbers. Okay, We refer to this technique in string and character handling as concatenation. Okay, is this project available to us? I think that it is allowed for you to view on YouTube. And learners, let's be honest, it's an absolute simple interface to create. So it wouldn't be available to you, but I don't think it's really difficult for you to go ahead and create this interface. Okay, so please view the previous videos on YouTube should you want to try to take it slower. Okay, so finally, just finishing up the last point over here, take note of where the output, or take note rather, that the output is placed outside the loop. Okay, so really, really important things. Okay, it goes ahead, and for this one learner who asked what is the purpose of the for loop, again, just to reiterate, the I is just a variable, nothing more than that. The 1 is the starting position for your array, and the 6 is the ending position, or the amount of values that you wish to store in the array. So I'm hoping that is clear, learners. I'm hoping that you saw why you did that, and obviously the purpose of the for loop. Okay, so I am moving on. Okay, so what would happen? So let's look at an example like this. Okay, let's say that you guys are fooling around at school or in class and say, let's see how good this program is, or how what arrays is really about. So you say that uh, assume the size of the array. So let me just answer the question, by the way. So Caleb says, does the starting position always have to be 1? Okay, I think that's really important for me to address it. No, Caleb, and that goes to the rest of the class as well. As long as you are able to allocate the amount of positions for the array, for instance, if you wanted to start at 0, you're welcome to start at 0, but your for loop will obviously go to 5. So I hope I answered your question, Caleb. It doesn't have to start at 1. It can start at 0 as well, provided that you know the amount of time, the amount of values that you are wishing to store in your array. Okay, so let us continue. And it says, okay, let's look at this, learners. Let's look at the slide. It says, assume that the size of the array is 6. Okay, everyone's following? So the for loop should be from 1 to 6. Agree? The for loop could be from 1 to 6. Keegan, yes, you are fine as well. You could say from 2 to 10 as well. Okay, it's just allocating values in that. It's just allocating. All the for loop is doing is saying how many times would you like to repeat it. So yes, please let us not be limited in our thinking with regards to the looping structures. And I'm glad I'm seeing these questions, because that is what programming should be. You should be as confident and at the same time not limited in your thinking. So yes, thank you for those questions. But if we could look, just continue looking now. So assume the size of the array is 6. Would you agree that the loop should be from 1 to 6? Let's say you didn't do that. Okay, let's say um, you wanted to see how good this program is. So you know that you are storing 6 values in the array, but you said, no, let me run a loop to say from 1 to 8. Notice what would happen in that event, learners. We have 6 values, or we have the size of our array is 6, but we ran a loop from 1 to 8. What do you think would happen in that event? Okay, just think about that. And yeah, if there's answers, learners, you can obviously do so using the chat. I see Thick Man raised his hand. Please do so using the chat. Would you agree that it's going to give us an error because the size of our array is to accommodate 6 values, but running a for loop to repeat 8 times, are there going to be any place for those other 2 values? So the thing that will happen in that event, learners, just know this, it's just something, the question that I asked Caleb is, the size of your array is 6, okay? The size of your array is 6. What would happen if we ran our for loop from 1 to 8? Would you agree that it's going to repeat 8 times? Are there 8 positions in our array? You would agree that there's not going to be 8 positions in our array. So if we do try to see what happens in this event, this learner is going to throw out an error, an exception error. So please note that. Okay, it will result in an index out of bounds exception. So I'm not saying that you need to obviously worry about this, but it would not ignore it, Keegan. It would definitely present an error to you. Okay, it would refer to you as an out of bounds exception. So please note this, and it's also good for you to understand what would happen in the event that you did do that. So again, just from the top, we spoke about the previous example. We looked at, we followed up on what we had to, and I just threw this question at you guys to see how you would understand it. Okay, so again, this is referred to as a out of bound exception. So let's go on to today's lesson. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to declare and store values, display values vertically, find the largest, find the average, and formatting when outputting. Okay, so this is what the example is going to be about today. We're going to look at this example here. Okay, so you should be, let's remember yesterday's lesson. We said, let's try to figure out the code before we actually get into Delphi and type it out. Okay, so let's look at this. It says, create a project called grade 11 IT class. Everyone's following? There are only 6 learners in your IT class, and you are requested to create an application to generate stats for the IT class, which was written in March 2020. So this is how the question would come to you. Okay, it will come to you in a scenario format. So remember, learners, one of the students yesterday asked, but couldn't this have been done without the use of arrays? Yes, the answer is yes, it can be done without the use of arrays. But remember that the purpose of arrays is to accommodate this value and even larger values. Yes, this would work fine with 6 normal variables. But what happens if there's 100 learners? And that's the reality. Agree? That's how you need to apply yourself in that kind of situation. So getting back to the question, it said there are 6 learners in your IT class. Would you agree that the size of our array will be 6? Okay. Okay, to generate stats for IT test. And as Caleb says, obviously it's also going to be time consuming for you to create 6 different variables. And if you had to sit there for 100 students and do 100 different declarations, I promise you, you'd have a lot of code, but yeah, that is not going to be really efficient. So again, so let's continue. So it says make a global variable called iArray test marks. Everyone can see what's going on, okay? So we're going to try to do this together. So if you want to have your Delphi out, or if you want to do this together, let's try doing this, okay? So I would suggest you taking a picture or screenshotting this so we can work with it together, and you can obviously try to be as interactive as possible. Okay, so make a global variable called iArray test marks, okay? And then a button to store marks of the 6 learners, which is input via the dialog box. Okay, so everyone's following. Again, let's do this together. I will share with you my Delphi screen. Okay, so let's open this project. Okay, learners, so you can see there's an interface in front of you now. So you're welcome to create it with me. You're welcome to take notes. You're welcome to follow it through, or you're just welcome to just sit and watch this. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm just gonna give you a minute just to take in the question. The question said that we're going to do this program for the test that was written in our IT class. There are 6 learners in this class, and obviously we want to be able to store those marks in a array. So I'm going to go to code, and I'm hoping by now you are all so familiarized with declaring an array. So I'm going to go to code, and I'm going to call this array. It said call this array iArray test marks. Okay, so iArray test marks. Everyone's happy, and please, Dennis, just focus on this, on the work. Obviously, we are storing marks for 6 learners, so I'm going to say 1 to 6 of integer. Everyone's following with that. I declared my array globally so that the entire program has access to my entire form has access to my code. So that's declaring. For those who didn't see that, Did you notice how that's done? So again, if you're writing this down as we go through it, making down points, that's good. Okay, so let's go back to the slide. And the slide said, under the button, enter marks, to store 8 marks of 6 learners, which is input via a dialog box. Okay, to store marks of the 6 learners, which is input via the dialog box. Okay, so let's do that. So under the marks, the learners are going to, the user is going to input the marks. So let me go and share that screen with you guys. So let's go to the button called input marks or store marks. And we're going to say, remember, we are storing values in the array. So because we are storing values in the array, I would need a for loop. So I go ahead and I declare the I, and I can come and say, for I is equal to, let's correct that, for I is equal to 1 to 6, because there are 6 learners. We are going to use an input box to allow the user to store the learner's marks. And where are we storing it? We are storing the marks in the array called iArrayTestMarks. So we go iArrayTestMarks. And remember, an array is different from a variable, so it needs to be shown differently. How is it shown differently? It is shown differently because it uses those square brackets. Okay. Everything comes in as a string, so it is obviously string, and it needs to be converted to an integer. So string to int. We obviously put the word input box over there. That will give us access to that component. And remember, we want to give a title for the input box. So let's say the title is marks input. A comma. What is the instruction that you want the input box to have? Enter the mark of the learner. Okay, and obviously we finish off with a space. Okay, I hope that is clear. I spent a lot of time talking about this in the previous sessions, so I'm not going to repeat that. If you lost with that part, you're welcome to go ahead and look at those previous videos. So learners, everyone's following? Okay, so just take a moment, understand that. Remember, we declared the array and we allowed the user to input the marks for the array. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so we're going to go back to the PowerPoint and see what is else required of us. So would you agree? Let's just do a checklist, okay? We did the array for 6 learners. That's correct. We allowed the user to input 6 marks using a dialog box. That's correct. What else do we need to do? Okay, so look at this. Under the button, display marks, the marks should be outputted using the sample output as a guide. So notice in this button called display marks, the marks for the grade 11 IT class should be the heading in this rich edit. The marks should be displayed one below each other. Notice they weren't so nice to you and told you, okay, learners, display the marks vertically. Or they didn't say, okay, learners, display the marks horizontally. You needed to see that, okay, the marks are below each other, so I need to use the vertical method that I learned yesterday. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's do the display button. Okay, so we're gonna go back into Delphi. We're gonna go display marks. And when we go to display marks, we ask ourselves, what would we like to display? We would like to display the values stored in the array. Because we want to display the values stored in the array, we need the for loop. Okay, I'm hoping this is like second nature to you guys now. Okay, for I is equal to 1 to 6. Okay, do begin. Now we want to obviously display the marks. And what component are we using? We're obviously using a memo, okay? So we're using a memo to display our marks, which is fine. So we'll say mem output dot lines dot add. And thanks to the learners, they said we have to send everything back out as a string. So we'll say into string, and we will say, let's display those marks, which is called iArray test marks. Because it's an array, it is used with square brackets. Mike, we will get to that section by the end of this week when we look at an unknown number. Okay. So we obviously displayed the marks, but can you tell me what I did not do? Did you see that I did not display the heading? So let's go back to that PowerPoint and see this. Did you notice that has to be a heading? Okay, the marks for the grade 11 IT class is as follows. So I'm going to go back to my Delphi, and I'm going to obviously do that out of the loop. Because why? Because we only want to display an heading. So I'm going to say mem output dot lines dot add, and I'm going to say the marks. Let me just see what the message is again. The message is obviously okay. The marks for the IT learners are, and okay, I'm just trying to get the concept across of how to do a heading. So if it doesn't match exactly the sample, it is fine, but I wanted to show you where you place your heading. So everyone's following. So let's look at it from the top. You are able to declare your array, you're able to input values into an array, and you're able to do a display matching the sample output. Okay, great. Now let's go back. Now this is where the things get interesting for today. If we go back, we want to find the highest, determine and output the highest mark. Okay, determine and output the highest mark. Now let's look at the sample over here. Can you see that the highest mark, obviously you want there to be a caption saying highest mark and then 100, because that is the highest mark. So let's go back to Delphi and let's code this. Okay, so I'm going to say highest mark. Let's click on that button and let's do this now. Okay, var, we need to obviously find the highest mark. So I'm going to run my for loop. Okay, I'm going to declare a variable for that. Now learners, I'm sure you learned about finding the highest in grade 10 or probably at the beginning of this year as well. Now this is what you need to understand. You want to find the highest. How would you do it? You obviously have to compare the values stored in the array. So you have to do some kind of if statements to do this. Okay, so you're going to test it. So how would we obviously start this process off? Remember, how would you check the first value against something? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable called highest. Okay, I'm going to make it an integer, and I'm going to set highest to 0. What is the purpose of setting highest to 0? The purpose of this highest to 0 is so that the program has a first value to work with. So notice what I said. I said the purpose of setting highest to 0 so that the first time the program is executed, you have a value to compare against. Because how is the first value going to be compared if it doesn't have something to be compared against? So by setting highest to 0, we are able to start comparing the moment the user starts inputting a value. Okay, so obviously highest is equal to 0. I want to run the for loop because I need to go through every value in my array to test it against highest. So I'm going to say if array numbers. Okay, so I'm going to say if array test marks, obviously that was it, array test marks is greater than highest. Now I'm gonna stop for a moment here and allow you to understand this. Okay, please take note of why highest is 0. Okay, please take note of why highest is 0. Brownman, you can try that out. I'm not going to say that it would work. You're welcome to try it out. I haven't, but I think that it's much more. I try to make the code as simple to understand as possible. So you're welcome to try it out. Okay. So by having I highest to be 0, obviously we have a value to test against the first time the program is being run. So please note that. I obviously want to test the values in my array. So notice this over here. If I array test marks is greater than highest. Okay, really simple. If I array test marks is greater than highest. And if that happens, if that is the case, what would you like to do? Okay, if that is the case, what would you like to do? I highest is equal to, I will answer your question now, Omolimo. I highest is equal to I array test marks square brackets I. Okay, just take a moment to look at that, please. So Omolimo asked the question, so if I highest did not have the first value, will the program use any other value? Well, Omolimo, you're welcome to, you could have done this. You could have set I highest to 0, and I'm going to put this in comments, okay? So you could have done this also. Or you could have said I highest is equal to I highest, or sorry, I array test marks at position 1. So you're forcing it to go to the first value. You could have done this also. Okay, I just think having 0 to work with, it makes it a much more approachable. But again, every learner, every person has their ways of doing it. This is my way, but there are other ways of doing it. Okay, so you could have done it that way, or you could have done it by setting it to 0. Remember, let's look at what's going to happen over here. Let's do a sample. Let's do a try run. Okay, the user inputs a value. Okay, so the first time the program runs, user inputs a value 36. Okay, everyone's happy with the value 36. How do we compare 36 to against something? So by having it against 0, so we're saying if I array test marks at position 1 is greater than highest. Notice highest is, it's just there for, it's always going to replace it. Agree, it's always going to replace the 0, but it had something to compare to. So that is so important, that it had something to compare to. And if it did have something to compare to, notice what I did. I said I highest is equal to I array test marks. Now learners, if you're getting confused with this, I tell my class this at school. All you're doing is, notice highest, you're just switching the two across. If I array test marks is greater than I highest, notice what we did. We just switched the variables around. I highest is equal to I array test marks. Take note of that. It is not complicated at all. All we are doing is switching the variables around. Okay, so again, if I array marks at position I is greater than I highest, all we do is say, okay, I highest is equal to I array test marks. Okay, that's quite nice. All we're gonna, after that, what we're gonna do is we're going to come outside the for loop, because we don't want to display the highest value 6 times. Agree? We're going to come outside the for loop, and we're going to say the message highest value is plus, let's leave a space here, highest value is plus int to string I highest. Okay, learners, take note of that. I made sure my answer matched my sample output. So I said, and notice, I'm gonna put a comment over here. Notice, output is done outside the loop. Okay, notice output is done outside the loop. Okay, I'm gonna put another comment over here, and this is doing the comparing. And what we still find learners doing in even up to grade 12, they don't know what the greater than symbol is and the less than symbol. Please, can we not make that mistake in future? Okay, so look at something, how we took the basic understanding or the basic concepts of arrays, and we put it into a scenario type of question. So please, learners, this is how it's going to come out to you. Yes, they might change the question or the scenario. They might say the highest number of food sold, or whatever it is. But the concept is so important. The concept being that you're finding the highest. Okay, the scenario may change, the array names may change, but the concept will always be over there. So please, I feel like today we got a lot of progress in terms of actually getting moving along along with arrays. So please note that in future. Okay, so let's try this out. Okay, so let's try this out. Okay, so Caleb says, would you mind running the program? Yes. Okay, so let's try this out. Let me share the screen with you guys. Okay, so store marks. Let's store the learner's marks. Let's say 78, 98, 15. You'll always get that one learner with 15, agree? 85, 98, and 100. Okay, let's display the marks. Everyone's happy so far? And the highest mark, highest value. Okay, so I should have changed this to highest mark. I hope that is fine, Caleb. You saw how that worked. So I'm hoping that you guys are happy with that. Again, please, I promise you, if you can do this, you will really have covered at least 50% or 60% of the content that is required for you to understand arrays at grade 11 level. Okay, so learners, take a moment, understand it, and then we can move on. Okay, so I'm going to stop this so we can continue with our code. We still have time, so I want to finish the last button. Okay, so Alana just asked for me to scroll back to where the array was declared. So that's fine. Just have a look at that. Okay, so just take a look at that in the meantime. Okay, learners, so I want to move on to the last question. Okay, if we do the last question for today, I think we would have accomplished quite a bit. Okay, so the last question was for us to find the average, but let's go back to the PowerPoint. Let's see what the question required of us. The question said, average of test. Find the average attained for the test. The average should be rounded off to 1 decimal place. So this is what I wanted to do, because questions always have to round off to 2 decimal places, round off to 2 decimal places. Learners don't see the point of the formatting. So I want to demonstrate in this part of the programming about finding the average and also being able to format our output. So let's go back to our code. We're almost done, learners, almost done. And the average test. Now, would you agree that how would you define the average? Would you agree that average can be defined as the sum of numbers, the sum of numbers,
Here are the top search results.
the sum of numbers divided by the amount of numbers, okay? So that is what average is, okay? The sum of numbers divided by the amount of numbers. That is how you find the average of anything. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna say we need to go through every value in the array. So we'll have integer. Now, by now, I'm hoping that this is so easy for you guys to understand, okay? In order for us to find the average, would you agree that we first have to find the sum? So I'm going to go ahead and create this variable called isum. And in addition to that, would you agree that we need to have a variable called average? Now, I always get learners or some learners saying that average should be integer. Learners, even if you are working with integer values, when you are dividing by integer, when you're dividing by a number, there's not always a guarantee that the answer will be in an integer data type. So please, when you're working with averages, with percentages, with money, etc., please keep the integer, please keep the data type for average or those type of variables real. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. We're going to find the sum. We obviously need to go through our array. So for I is equal to 1 to 6, because there are 6 values, and we're going to begin finding the sum. Okay, so I'm going to make sum equal to 0. I sum is equal to 0. Everyone's happy with that? And I'm going to say I sum is equal to I sum plus the numbers in my array, which is I array test marks. And obviously it gets used with the square brackets. Everyone's fine with that. Okay, again, learners, look at this over here. Why did we say I sum is equal to 0? And why did we say I sum is equal to I sum? Again, what is addition? Addition is obviously or what is sum? Sum is obviously the addition of two or more values. But how does the first value get added if it's only one value? So by setting it to 0, the first time the program runs, it is able to add the first value. So please take note of these simple things, because even in class as well, I see learners memorizing setting sum to 0, but know the purpose of it. The purpose being that it allows the program to have something to add the moment it starts running. So please note that, okay? And I'm going to say take note of I sum equals 0. Okay, we want to find the average. So we're going to come out of the loop and find the average. Now, average is equal to what? Average can be defined as the sum of numbers divided by the amount of numbers. How many numbers do we have in this array? How many test marks are there? Would you agree that there are 6 marks that are there? Okay, and I'm going to say again, what is the purpose? What is 6? Okay, 6 is amount of marks. Notice I'm not saying the marks, I'm saying it is the amount of marks, okay? So please note that. I'm hoping everyone knows where 6 came from, because average is the sum of marks divided by the amount of marks. Now, I know that I will get learners saying, but what happens if I took this and I placed it within the loop? I will be honest with you and say that it will not be marked wrong. Okay, it won't be marked wrong, because as long as you displayed or you outputted your value out of the loop, okay? So you're welcome to use do the calculation within the loop, but you output or display the information at once. But I would still recommend doing average out of the loop. We're going to come to the final part, which is display. Okay, we're going to come and say mem output. If you display the calculation within the loop, does it still give the same result? Yes, it will still give the same result, but you can imagine, Caleb, it will give it to you 6 times. So you would lose marks for the final output. Okay, learners, so I'm just going to finish this off here. I have about 4 minutes to go. I still want to do a summary for today so that everyone's fine. Okay, so finally, I want to do the formatting. Float to string F. F is to say that we want to use either FF fixed or FF currency. Okay, it said, which value would you like to format? I want to format R average. Okay, would you like to use FF fixed or FF currency? Remember, FF currency is used with money. We are working with just normal decimals. So I'm going to go ahead and use FF fixed. And if you were with me in last week's lesson, we said the first number is the amount of numbers before the comma, and the second number is the amount of numbers after the comma. Please take a look at this. We still get learners up to grade 12 level who don't know how to do formatting. Again, float to string F. You have to put the F over there. You indicate the variable that you would like to format. The type of formatting I'm using, obviously FF fixed. This number is not compulsory, learners. Some of you might choose to use 10. I just like using 6, but this number is so important, because remember, our question said that your answer should be rounded off to 1 decimal place. So that is where that 1 came from. Okay, I'm just going to finish off over there. And that is it, learners. That is it. That is how you would have found the sum, the average, inputting values, and obviously looking at this. So I'm hoping that all this work that we did for the past week, you really saw how it tied up. And for those learners who joined us for the first time today, please view the other videos. I like to take it as slow as possible, making sure that we don't leave anyone behind. And obviously you're able to catch up, okay? So we're going to go. So someone said, Omolimo says I must go to the first button. I'm just going to do that quickly, Omolimo. If you can take a pic of this, Omolimo, or watch it later is fine. Okay. So I want to just tie up for today. Thank you, guys. I appreciate the comments. So yes. So I have a few minutes left, Omolimo. Please, I'm just going to go back over there. I hope you took a picture of it. Okay, so we're just going to round up for today. And we spoke about this. So finally, learners, you should be able to display your arrays according to the question provided. okay? And you should be able to apply your knowledge of the array in a coding to the scenario that is obviously given to you. As I said, I'm hoping that you, after this lesson, you are so much more comfortable with arrays. Remember, it's all about the scenario and understanding the basics. Okay, thank you, learners, and good night, Mike. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.